Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Woodinville is for us in Europe rare and exotic, for you in America probably not. So I finally have a bottle of Woodinville, the straight bourbon whiskey pot stilled 90 proof, 45%. They were founded in 2010 and we have real craft whiskey is what it says on the label. Beautiful bottle. I mean, here you have the actually there you have here made in Washington. You have the Woodfield Whiskey Company WWC here on the top. I think it's a great bottle. Even the information on the back of the label is very, very nice. So we have two friends basically in the year 2010 say, hey, let's start a distillery. And it worked. There's no grandpa recipe of an old log still or anything like that. They just do that. They get a great consultant named Dave Pickerell. So he actually helped a lot and got them all started. And back then in 2017, Louis Vuitton, Monet, Hennessy, so LVMH came and bought them. So if you don't know about them, maybe you've heard of Glenmorangie. They own that. And for you peat heads out there, of course, you know Hotpick. So that belongs to the same company, those three distilleries there. They don't own many other whiskey distilleries, but they do own Woodinville, Ardbeg, and Glenmorangie. So I'm going to talk a tiny little bit about the beginnings, and I'm going to let the whiskey sit in the glass for a moment, because we have here actually, I thought it was very, very interesting to find out that Woodinville actually, since they started 2010, that's 13 years ago, they were part of the ISC, International Save Companies, process of finding out the craft distillery series for their casks. And so ISC, International Stave Company, sent Woodinville way back when 24 different casks, different barrels, different stave thicknesses, different seasonings of the wood, different toasting levels, different charring combinations. And Woodinville actually decided on having their barrels be 18-month air-dried barrels with their staves. I forgot the word in English. 18-month air-dried staves. They decided on actually a heavy toast and a heavy char, which makes them a little bit special here. We do have an interesting mash bill. We have 72% corn, we have 22% rye, and we have 6% malted barley. Now, the corn and the rye are all grown at one farm in Washington State. The barley someplace else, that's no problem. And if you go to the website here, WoodinvilleWhiskeyCo.com, there's so much information that I really, really love. They talk about their pot still. They have a 1,320-gallon handmade pot still. They have a 16-plate bubble cap with a super aromator rectification column. So they have the column still, 16 after that. They have two deflectors, which actually pump in cold water and make the new make spirit that's condensed back into the still itself and make it a little bit interesting. They produce about 7 barrels of whiskey a day. That's not much. Jack Daniel does, I think, 300. Wilderness Trail was up to 60 barrels a day. Peerless does almost 10. So 7 is fairly small, to be honest. All right. So their ingredients are all from the Omley family farm in Quincy, Washington. So they use 2.5 tons of corn, rye, and malted barley, and they mill every kernel into a fine flour, which is also interesting. Not a grist that we know from Scotland, but a very fine flour. They mix it with purified Cascade mountain water. They cook it. They turn a lot of starches into sugar in the mashing process. The distillation process goes first of all through the pot still and then through the column. If I go to Wilderness Trail, if I go to Peerless, if I go to even Wild Turkey, They have the column, even Maker's Mark, they have the column first and then have a doubler. The doubler or the thumper is basically the pot still at the end. So they're doing it the other way around, which is not wrong. It's just different. Let's say that there. Very good. What they do is they have a low barrel entry proof, 55% ABV, so they use the same purified Cascade mountain water to dilute the whiskey down from the pot still, only the best hearts. I'm always a little critical of saying, what are the hearts of a column still? You set it up and it runs through it, all right? So they age there in their warehouse. They actually go over the Cascades Mountains. They have the distillery here on the other side of the Cascade Mountains. They have their warehouse in eastern Washington, and there in Quincy, Washington, they let the barrel sit for at least 5 years. So this is confirmed from the distillery to be a 5-year-old product, even though it says just straight, so which means that's before, but it's a good thing. Some people do single barrels. If you can find them, they're supposed to be awesome. All right, in Woodinville, many people I've talked to really enjoy the Woodinvilles they've tasted, and I finally have the chance. So I'm going to compare it to something from California, Sonoma, California, Redwood Empire. This is a 4-year-old product they made themselves, mixed or blended together with 12-year-old source product. It's not perfect, but I just wanted to do an West Coast craft comparison. Find out what's really going on here. In my German video, I actually compared both of these at the end to the Woodford Reserve Distiller Select with 43.2%. Both of these have 45. Both of these in the West Coast should be around $40, $45. This one, I like this better. All right, so we still have not passed the legacy distillers yet, but this is in Versailles, Kentucky, the pot still mixed together with column still whiskey made from Brown-Forman in Kentucky as well. So let's nose these, let's taste these, let's review these. Okay, there's a creme brulee, there's a brown sugar, there's a wood spice, and there's a little bit of a baking spice, allspice going on in here. Nice. Now, the thing that really blew my mind, come on, I'm going to do this. All right. So this was my Woodford Reserve glass. If I have the little bit of Woodford Reserve that's still in here, and I go back to the Woodinville, I notice it's green. I notice it's young. Now, I don't think that the Woodford Reserve is that much older. It might be 6 years of age, but this is 5. Kentucky is a little bit different than Washington with the heat cycles and all that. But it's like I didn't know that it was any type of greenness, any type of youthfulness. It's like a green apple, green pear. I only get it when I compare it to something else. And that's why it was so important for me. Let's put this up on the table. Did exactly the same thing in German. It's just like, okay, all right, we have the Woodford Reserve. This is the price for a dram at a whiskey fair that I had the bottle with last year. I do enjoy Woodford Reserve products a lot. I love the double oak. I thoroughly enjoyed the rye. Even the standard bourbon is something that I recommend a lot of people beginning and starting out. Now, over here in Germany, as it is available, and not everyone in America, I first of all recommend the Eagle Rare because I can get this for 35 euros. It's 10 years old, and it's available online continually, constantly. There's no shortage of Eagle Rare, at least in Germany, that I've experienced yet. Mark my words, this year we're going to have a shortage, all right? So 2024. Yeah, very, very nice, but a little bit still green around the edges. Cheers. There's always two things I get with Woodinville. I haven't had that much, but first of all, it's a creaminess. It's a nice texture. I assume that it's non-chill filtered. Does not say anywhere on here about that. But it is, first of all, pot still and then column still. That's the first thing, the creaminess. And the second thing that I get is a little bit of heat. For the 45%, that it drinks like a 50% whiskey. A 100 proof, 90 proof is what it's actually at. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of baking spices. There's a lot of creme brulee. There's a tiny little bit of leather and pecans, maybe a little bit of walnut going on in here. It's a good whiskey. It's a C to a C plus. Nothing more, nothing less. Solid whiskey. Now, if I were in America, in the United States, if I were on the West Coast, and I would like, okay, I have my standard Wild Turkey, I have my Heaven Hill, I have my Buffalo Trace, and I have my, what did I forget? My Jim Beams. Let's go for them. I want something different. I don't want any one of the big boys. I want something local. I want some, this would be it. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy it for the price, for the taste. Wonderful. C for value for money. Over here we have our Redwood Empire. As I said, a blend of their 4-year-old own whiskey with 12-year-old source whiskeys. I like the Woodinville much better. This is a little bit brighter, a little bit shinier, a little bit more of a, this has earth tones in there, flavors, darker, richer. It's a little bit of on the bright side of a whiskey, which is not bad, but if I'm comparing these two, I would definitely go for the Woodinville. But as I mentioned, we also have the Woodford Reserve Masters Select. I always want to say Masters because we have Masters Keep. Distiller Select. The Woodinville feels a tiny bit more, a little bit more viscosity, a little bit of creaminess. This has the package. Everything's there. Everything's the way I want it. Everything's the way I like it. That mixture of the pot still and the column still whiskey beautifully. The age, those climate-regulated warehouses that Woodford has here really does its magic. It's got a good long aftertaste. And there's no outstanding features that kind of make this whiskey have the elbows a little bit of a problem. It's all just polish. It's all, for some people, it might be too polished, but I like this. This is my favorite of the three. This is number 2. This is number 3. This is still a good whiskey. Don't get me wrong, but the Woodinville's getting up there. We've been doing, or they've been doing, for the last 14 years. They've been making whiskey there. And still, in my opinion, they have not yet absolutely caught up with the legacy brands. They're getting close. I hope they get even closer. And I've had the information given to me many times that the single barrels actually beat most of the single barrels here. But the standard average product is not yet quite there, in my opinion. All right, imagine you have a friend who wants a bourbon under 50% ABV, under 100 proof, under $50. What do you recommend? Is it going to be a Woodford Reserve product? Is it going to be Woodinville? Is it going to be a Redwood Empire? What's it going to be and why? What's your recommendation there? All right, thank you very much for watching, liking, subscribing, telling others, and see you real soon. Whiskey Jason here. Bye-bye.